Well, it has already been a bit of a miserable summer for Newcastle, and according to talkSPORT's chief football correspondent Alex Crook, it could be about to get worse.
talkSPORT understands United have initiated talks with Leipzig about prizing Šeško away. It's going to take an offer of around €75 million, so it's likely United will have to sell players first, but this is certainly one we'll be tracking on talkSPORT for the remainder of the transfer window, and we're told Šeško is in favour of a move to Old Trafford.
So it might be another disappointment as far as Newcastle are concerned, but of course things seem to be looking up for Manchester United. Šeško would join Matheus Cunha and Brandon Mbeumo at Old Trafford. Martin O'Neill says he's not surprised they're able to pull off big signings despite finishing 15th last season.
They should be able to do that if they win one more game. And, we mentioned this again on Monday, what is it, top 8 or whatever the case may be. Manchester United are Manchester United with a history of Sir Alex Ferguson, Matt Busby, all the great sides that they have had during their time and project. You don't have to mention, you sign for Manchester United because it's Manchester United.
Look, with some potentially good attacking signings, I think, Mbeumo and Cunha, which is great. I'm going to argue here, Martin, say that they're not absolutely good players, not absolutely out of the top drawer. You know, Alexander Isak isn't going to be going to Manchester United. Victor Gyökeres didn't want to go to Manchester United. So maybe they can't sign players absolutely from the top echelon, but they've signed some good players, there's no question. How concerned would you be, though, about them at the other end of the field? Because they all seem to be attacking options at the moment, Alan.
Yeah, and I think that they have a problem at the back because, he plays with a back three. They got a goalkeeper that makes mistakes. He can be brilliant, but he can, unfortunately, not have the consistency you'd like to have at Man United. For me, I think they should go and get Guehi out of Crystal Palace. I mean, he plays central, he plays left side. He could be the captain. He's a great leader. He's in the last year of his contract. He is available. That's who I would be going for, because I genuinely feel that they need kind of a centre-back that they can really put their hat on back there. Martinez, obviously, injuries, blah, 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 Maguire. But Guehi is a different level. And I think when you're Man United and you're at home and it's 1-1, you've got to leave somebody at the back who can deal one-on-one. And that's what Man United have always had, Ferdinand, etc., etc. So this is where I think they have a problem. When they're really pushing, they're vulnerable.
It'd be interesting to see Guehi, fantastic player, but Palace fans, goodness knows what they're thinking at the moment, because all we have to do is talk about their players potentially leaving.
Yeah, well, 2 or 3 of their players. The Eze one's a different one because he has a longer-term contract, but Guehi's a typical, example of a great player that Palace fans really would love to keep. But he's got a year left on his contract. It makes it really difficult for Crystal Palace to not accept a big fee for him.
Manchester United, of course, maintaining their winning start to their tour of the US last night. They beat Bournemouth 4-1 in Chicago. Afterwards, Ruben Amorim said that he's already seeing massive improvements from his team.
More than the results, it's the way they are playing. Then I think is really important. People cannot see that, but I think they are playing better also because they are connecting better with each other, not just on the pitch, but off the pitch. I think they are stronger. They are faster in this moment. Of course, it's a pre-season, but you can see the intensity is completely different. I can see the data from the minutes are completely different. So we are improving. But again, it's a pre-season game. The pressure is going to be so much different during the season. But it's important for them to understand that they can play. The same players can play a different game. And I think today was a good day.
Another good day for Manchester United. Their fans must be optimistic at the prospects next season. Let's get the thoughts of talkSPORT's Manchester correspondent Micky Gray. Morning, Micky.
Jeff, how are you doing? Alan, how are you?
Hi, Micky. I'm good.
Good, mate. And United fans probably are pretty optimistic with the way pre-season is going. But let's talk about who might still be to come through the Old Trafford door. Benjamin Šeško. Would you choose him over Ollie Watkins?
I think if you look at the signings, Jeff, I think they've probably gone for more tried and tested in the Premier League from seasons gone by. If you look at Mbeumo and Cunha, I think that's certainly something that Ruben Amorim's kind of pinpointed, that he wanted players that know what the Premier League's about. So it's a bit unknown if he goes for Šeško. And I agree with you. I think Ollie Watkins will be a better buy. You know exactly what you're going to get. I think Manchester United are going to be a more dynamic team this season. If you look at the signings that they've made, I do agree. And I was just listening to Alan there. I do think they need that stability at the back, and Guehi will be an absolutely fantastic signing for them. Whether they've got the funds to do that by the time they can get rid of the players that are going to leave Manchester United is another question. But I certainly I think they're going to be more of a threat, Manchester United, going forward, which is something that Ruben Amorim talked about when he walked through the door. But they've got to hit the ground running. I've watched a couple of their pre-season games, actually. I watched them when they played against West Ham for 65 minutes. They were absolutely outstanding. They still looked a little bit vulnerable at the back, but they made a lot of changes in the last 25 minutes in the game, and it pretty much changed from them. But if that's the Man United we're going to see in the first 65 minutes that I saw, then I think they can be very optimistic. And I'm not talking about finishing the top four, but certainly they'll cause a threat to anybody in the Premier League.
I mean, obviously, Micky, you see a lot of their games last year, 17 games they lost or whatever it was. I think... the only way really is up for them. And the pre-season's seems to have gone well. Amorim was obviously, you just heard him talking them up there a little bit. I think that's really where they need to be, isn't it? I mean, they have to kind of turn last year's negative into a positive in terms of going forward. And, and as you say, at the top of the pitch, that energy that he had at Sporting Lisbon, Amorim, which he created there, is definitely starting to appear, isn't it? In this particular team.
It is, Alan. Yeah, 100%. And I think Ruben Amorim knows himself that he must feel under a little bit of pressure to get off to a good start because of the performances from Manchester United last season. They put all their eggs in one basket to try and win the Europa League. Unfortunately, they weren't able to get over the line against Spurs. So he'll know how important the Premier League is this season. They've got no distraction of European football. And I think those first half a dozen, maybe 8 games of the season are absolutely key for Manchester United. They're not going to have the easiest start against Arsenal, obviously, but the players that come through the door have got to bed into that dressing room. They've got to bed into that new squad and bed into the system that Ruben Amorim wants to play. And if it is going to be dynamic football, then those players have got to be 100% fit and ready to go from that first whistle of the first day of the season.
Micky, another one of your former sides, Sunderland, pulled off a coup, really. Bayer Leverkusen skipper Granit Xhaka has signed for them. The former Arsenal midfielder spoke to the fans on social media for the first time yesterday.
He was incredible, Jeff. What a signing. What, £17 million? You think about the experience that he's had in the Premier League already. I think there must have been a lot of sides after Granit Xhaka. So to get him through the door is absolutely brilliant because it's an inexperienced team. I know they've made a lot of signings this season, Sunderland, but how many of them are going to be playing in the first team is yet to be seen. But I think with the experience that Xhaka's got, just sitting in front of that midfield and in front of the back four is going to be absolutely key because they need to get off to a good start. I say this about every side that gets promoted from the Championship, and we've seen it over the last 2 seasons because of the problems that they've had. You've got to get points on the board. Alan, you probably know this yourself as well. It's about getting points on the board, getting a bit of confidence into that dressing room. And if you can do that, then you've got every chance of staying in the Premier League because that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and obviously that fan base will get them over the line in certain games. They're unbelievable up there, the noise and the passion that they get. I mean, Xavier into there is a worry for me. I mean, disciplinary wise, he's used to winning. They've had an unbelievable run at Leverkusen, winning the title, etc. I know last year was not as successful, but still a great season. Losing every week with the way he plays and the kind of tenacity that he shows, I would expect to see him going off the pitch a couple of times.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. His discipline has been questioned over the years, hasn't it? Certainly we saw that when he was at Arsenal, throwing his shirt when he was coming off the pitch. He fell out of love with the supporters, but then they fell back in love with him. But I suppose that's down to the manager and it's down to the player himself is to say, look, we can't afford to be playing games in the Premier League with 10 players. You have to be disciplined. You've got to be kind of assured of yourself. But for me, he's got to be that experienced head on the pitch. He's the one who's got to organise the team, because as I mentioned before, they're a very young team.
Yeah.
And, the final, the players that played in the final, there was no Premier League experience whatsoever. So I think Regis Sabris, they've gone out, they've gone for experienced players, and they need them. You're going to need them in the Premier League when the chips are down and things aren't going your way. You've got to try and find another way of winning football matches.
Mickey, thank you very much indeed. I think he's a brilliant signing. Played 49 times last season for Leverkusen.
And I think it'll be even more important in the dressing room, actually, because even in the staff, the experience they're going to need for the Premier League, he's got it. And he's going to know, like, when you're sitting in there at half-time and you're 2-0 down, maybe to Man City at home or something, you got to have a solution. You got to find a way. And in his experience, will guide them on that.
Yeah. Thanks very much indeed, Pards. This is talkSPORT Breakfast, 8:15.
talkSPORT Breakfast, waking you up Monday to Friday morning from 6 a.m. on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.